Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. End of another week. 1 week closer to Christmas. I think it's about 2 weeks now or something to the fat man comes through the chimney or the front door. You've not got a chimney. But anyway, tonight we are joined by two very esteemed gentlemen. The one below me, you'll know who he is. The guy that never ages from year to year. Never ever. He still looks in his prime. So, I mean, he's actually recharging some batteries just now. I'm going to grass him in. I don't care. Okay, Barrie John. And next door to me, we have Barry's twin brother, Gaz Creswell. That's the first time Gary's joined us. And he'll probably not come back after Barry's finished with him. So there's Kate in saying, hi, Kate doll. So it's good to have you in, Gary. Gary and Barrie. That rhymes.
Very much, yeah. Gaz and Baz.
Gaz and Baz, is that what you call them, Baz?
Yeah, Gaz and Baz, isn't it?
Oh, I'm going to write that one down, actually. Baz.
We ought to have that on our windscreens, Gary, didn't we? Gaz and Baz. Well, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. That's a bit creepy.
No, that's got his and hers. Hey, Jacqueline Doll, hope you're keeping well.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, Kate.
So did you actually have stickers on your car, his and hers?
No. I'm not old enough for them. No,
the
sun visor one. The sun visor ones that went across the top. No, I'm not old enough for that one.
Mind the green ones? My dad told me about them because I'm the same as you, Baz. Can I call you Baz?
Everybody calls me that,
yeah. Start something now.
My dad told me about it in the green strip we used to get across the top of the windscreen back in the day. You know what I mean? But anyway, we're not here to talk rubbish, even though Baz is in. You know what I mean? Sorry. So thanks for coming in, Gaz.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
How do you know this gentleman and what do you do, kind of thing?
What do I do? Well, I wear a few different hats, to be honest. I'm a bit like Barrie in the sense that I think I'm just always busy, always got a lot on. So in my 9 to 5, I'm a cybersecurity project manager. Outside of my 9 to 5, I've just started up an AI automation marketing agency. And I'm also a director for the local Newark Services Club, where we help out lots of veterans and blue light services, NHS, prison service, that kind of stuff. Give them a safe space to go to, and obviously, we promote their local charities as well. So we do what we can for the community. So yeah, so a few hats that I wear, just to keep me busy, keep me entertained.
So you're a tech guy, basically.
I am very techie, yeah. At times, I started off. I was in the military for 12 years, and whilst I was in the military, I did a lot of sort of ICT work, so building the networks and deploying them around the world, essentially. And then when I came out, I became a cybersecurity engineer, and then I just kind of sort of fell into the project management side of things.
Sounds quite posh and technical. You're on the right show there, my friend. Sorry, you know.
Nothing posh and technical about it.
I am neither posh nor technical, as Baz will tell you.
Neither am I, to be honest. I know how to use a phone. That's about it. I'm surprised I haven't got one of them old-fashioned Nokias. Do you remember the brick ones? That'd suit me down to the ground.
3310.
Yeah, 3310. Yeah, the ones that used to bounce when you dropped them.
That was the one. Yeah.
Oh,
That's snake on it.
Mind the black flip ones. You used them in the films back then, and the this tiny wee aerial that you pulled out the top.
Yeah.
You remember them?
Oh yeah.
Like
Motorola's and stuff like that, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, and if you got one of them, you felt like you were kind of high tech. You were sitting in the bus and stuff like that. Even though you weren't talking to anybody, you just wanted to show your phone off. You know, so you'd be sitting in the bus kidding when you're talking to somebody, just so everybody can see your phone. And then it would ring halfway through the conversation, wouldn't it?
Yeah. We complain about Signal nowadays, don't we? It was even worse then, if you remember.
I can't remember that far back.
Whatever.
You know, I think I was still in school then when the first mobile phones came out. I remember the first ones, they were like that size. You know, but my Dom Jolly with Trigger Happy TV. It was kind of like that, you know. So, Gary, how did you get mixed up with this gentleman?
I used to do a little bit of life coaching as well on the side. I've paused that for now, but that's essentially how we met. We were doing well-being shows with Lizzie and events, and Barrie came over, introduced himself, and we just hit it off from the get-go. I've been friends ever since.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a good few years ago now. Must be getting on.
It was, yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I've got a lot of, and I'm not just saying this because Gary's online. He is a very, very good friend, but I've got a lot of credit for Gary, really, in terms of what he does and praise, because obviously I knew him from the sort of life coaching improvement side of things, and I think it was terrific, really, what he was trying to achieve by helping people get through business scenarios, personal scenarios as well. And I think there's a lot tied in terms of well-being. It's not all just about mediumship. It's not just all about Reiki and selling health. It's also about looking at us individually in terms of what we needed to do. And really, that's how we got talking, wasn't it? We were talking about the sort of life coaching side. But the thing that then I found out about Gary, which he hasn't told you yet, is he's very big into his paranormal. And I mean, he's yet to come and work with me on a paranormal event, and he will do one day, I'm sure. But
I don't know how that hasn't happened yet, but somehow
I don't know either. You just need to book a ticket, for God's sake, and just come and join us. But I mean, it's funny, really, because you come across people on this sort of, I'll call it spiritual path, and we all seem to be wanting the same sort of thing. We all want that experience of the paranormal, like me and you, Scott. We talked about it before, where, we're searching for something, want that element of proof. And even though, let's be honest, we all look at it as a little bit of fun nowadays, there's still that wanting to prove it, wanting to see it and need it and everything. And Gary had a great way of pulling people into his little stand area, didn't you, when you were on the wellbeing events, where you used to get them in and you used to see him almost like pinning them to the chair and tying them up, and they had no choice really but to sit and listen to him. They couldn't get away.
What you do on a Friday night, Barrie, is your business.
But as I say, I've known Gary for it must be. What is it now, Gary? Probably about 6 or 7 years, is it?
Must be getting up to that. Yeah, I would have thought so.
It's got to be, hasn't it? It must be, and obviously you've gone into different areas. You've gone into very much your corporate business side as well, which, again, is something great. And I think, we've all seen over the years how the sort of wellbeing market's changed. It's very different now to what it used to be 6, 7 years ago. And especially footfall as well. We all seen that footfall sort of start dropping, and due to that ridiculous period that we had called COVID, that really just affected everybody wanting to go out, spend money. And I think, one thing what I have great admiration for Gary with is that he's plugged himself very majorly online in terms of what he does and further afield, and then getting involved with some of the businesses that he's involved with. I think you're involved. Are you still involved with the Newark Business Club, Gary?
I haven't been for a while, but kind of, yeah. Pop in when I can, sort of thing.
Yeah. So again, promoting yourself all over, but it's one of the things that we all have to do, isn't it? Just constantly promoting. But as I say, the thing that I love about Gary was basically, the paranormal side, which is what always gets me going a little bit, because I think there's a big fascination with it still for people in terms of wanting to prove it.
You mentioned the paranormal. Kate's got a question for you, Gary. You can answer this as well, Barrie, if you want, but it's Gary's kind of show the night, but you just charge it back.
Good question, Kate. I'm not sure really what got me into it. I guess kind of like what Barrie said, it's in the terms of I think I'd seen a few shows, and I mean, we all know that's sort of more entertainment as things. So I'd call myself a little bit of a fan of the shows, but I then kind of got more into it where I wanted to find out for myself. I didn't want somebody to tell me that there was proof out there, or if there wasn't proof out there, I wanted to get more into it myself. So that's when I started getting a bit involved with sort of local ghost hunts and things like that. And then I was just hooked. After the first one, I was just hooked into it. It got me a bit of an adrenaline kick, I think. Nothing better than turning up yourself and seeing what you can find.
No, that's 100% right, Gary. I watched all the ghost shows. That's Barrie has, and thousands of other people have, and half of them are older bollocks, basically. I don't mind saying. And so you do get curious, and you do get the wee, maybe I want to know. And you do go, but then you find out that it's nothing like the ghost shows, and you do get the bug for it. You know, even if you go your very first time and you don't get anything, you still want to. Oh, I want to do that again, and it's quite addictive. I reckon.
Yeah. Well, I think the bit that got me really hooked is such. So literally, me and my brother went out, didn't know what we were doing. I think we had like a real cheap video camera on us. I think we were both sort of filming and maybe had like a dictaphone or something like that, you know, trying to almost imitate what we'd seen on TV at that stage. And we went to, I can't remember what the place was called now, but I was based at RAF Cranwell at the time, so it wasn't far from there. And we basically found what used to be an old sort of like mental health establishment. But it was all kind of getting turned into houses. But what we did find was almost like this underground access by like this wooded area. I don't even know how we spotted it, but we were sort of like, you know, trundling around. I think it's because we'd found one of the buildings, but it was all fenced off. Like it was already taken over by like a security company, make sure people weren't going in and out. So I think we were walking around the perimeter to try and find a way in. And as we came around the back, I think we did like a kind of almost like a side track to go around something that was in the way. And that's when we saw this opening. And I went down there and we're sort of videoing. We started going along this corridor. And long story short, then when I got out and reviewed it later on, that's when I believe I caught my very first EVP. And it wasn't even anything I could understand. It was literally like this pop sound and then what sounded like just muffled talking. And I've still to this day can't make it out. But at that point, that was me like hooked. Like that's you know, it's like you were saying, sometimes you go out and you get absolutely nothing, but because I'd caught just this what I believe to be, you know, this minute, you know, class C EVP, I was like, this is amazing. That there must be more to this. I wonder how I can dial in on that and make it better next time, kind of thing, you know. So
but you know what, Gary, that must be interesting for you, you know, working in the techie environment. Hey, up here's trouble. Look, working in the techie environment, it's really interesting, isn't it, for you? Because you must be able to sort of analyze things like that and think, you know what is this? You know, where's this leading me to? But, you know, I mean, I think you touched on it a few minutes ago, you know, that adrenaline rush when you first get involved in the paranormal, you know, when you get your first experience and you go, oh my God, I want more of it. I want more of it. And I always talk, I've talked about it on Scott's show before when, you know, when I was younger, many, many years ago, as you know, where we just used to walk into buildings. You didn't have to pay in those days. You know, there was loads of abandoned old buildings. You just turned up, you found a way in, and you got in and you did what you wanted to. That was it. And times have changed so much now. And just jumping on, we were talking about TV and things that happen in TV, where people do come along and expect it to be very much like a TV show. And I always think they set themselves up for disappointment a little bit because, you know, as you and I know, all of us know, within 5 minutes, it doesn't just happen. It takes time, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Speaking of weird people, oh, here she is.
Surprise, surprise.
Barrie, I know you and Tracy are good friends, so I said to Tracy the other day, if you know, if she wanted to come on, and she came on because she wanted to see you charging your batteries. You know. So this is Tracy. She's a tarot reader and a medium.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's going to be another victim on our show next year. January, she's coming on. But she's a good friend of Baz.
That's what's on my number plate, by the way. That way.
The opposite way.
I don't know. I can't do it. I'm useless at things like that. I mean, interesting enough, I mean, you know, I met Tracy online. We were just swapping messages, weren't we? And suddenly we've become very good friends. And as you can tell, when Tracy's online, by the way, there's always lots of like lights flashing around in a room, which always fascinates me. And I've just seen one just go across, I think. But yeah, we just became very good friends, and a little bit like Gary, really. You know, it's that fascination of, I'll call it the metaphysical, because it's a bit more than the paranormal, you know, and we've swapped some great messages between us and had some wonderful talks about mediumship and card readings, etc. as well. And she's been a great support and a great friend to me as well. Feels a bit like this is your life tonight. Why are we doing this to me?
Who else is going to turn up?
It's going to be my old school teacher, my old piano teacher in a minute, isn't it?
Well,
look who it is. And now you mention it, here she is.
I don't have a big red book, I do apologise, but we could do a kind of, should do that one night. This is your life. I should just track people down.
Oh,
That's
God,
a good idea, actually.
Don't do that to me.
Barrie.
How are you, Tracy? Thanks for joining us.
I'm very well, thank you, Scott. Very nice to be here.
I know it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I was playing it down, saying, well, I might join in. I might be able to watch a bit later.
I usually tell.
I'll be saying hi.
I usually tell people I'll be watching. Some people actually fall for it. That's my teeth. Fall for it. When I say I'll be watching, they'll mail me and say, "What do you mean you'll be watching? Are you not coming on?" Say, "No, I'm just going to watch." And they start to panic. Because I like winding people up, so I think like that. I've got another question for Gary. No offence to the two downstairs. For Kate, I'll pop up and for you, man.
I wasn't based there, unfortunately. I was more sort of Lincolnshire. I spent a lot of time in Germany when I was in the army as well, but no, I've not been sort of like that Norfolk, Suffolk area. But no, that'd definitely be an interesting topic to look into, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know, I used to work down in Mildenhall. I ran a company down there. I was commercial director for them. And the Mildenhall is like where all the RAF bases, Gary will know this better than me, won't you? And you know what? There's some fantastic energies around there. I mean, some very strange characters at times as well that seem to make an appearance. But it really is quite an active area. I think just purely for the fact that, you're near the coastline. You've got all that sort of ancient activity that takes place as well. The fens, and I think it's terrific. I really do. Oh, there you go, Gary. Another one for you now.
Oh no, Bielefeld. No, I wasn't Bielefeld. I was Krefeld, Bruggen, JHQ, Larbrook. Yeah, a few different places, but yeah, never went to Bielefeld. Typical, isn't it? It seems like we had the opportunity to cross paths by the sounds of things, but didn't quite. So never mind.
So, Tracy, let's hear just a little bit about what you do, though.
Right. Okay. So I am predominantly a tarot card reader, and I use oracle cards as well. But I'm a psychic medium. I run a circle. I run workshops, but I'm very much low key. I do things on a very small scale. So I do a lot of things online. If I do a workshop, I normally do them from my home. So it's by people that I invite that I know, and we all get together and do various things. So yeah, a little bit of everything really. I've done paranormal investigations, but again, on a small scale. It's just a group of fellow mediums that we get together. We go and investigate a location. I'm not so much for the big public things. I do things on a much smaller scale, but I really absolutely love what I do. So,
do you think that just for your saying, you don't go for the bigger things near the way, because we're Scottish and we're too tight-fisted to pay for it, basically. We only do places that are free, like, graveyards and stuff. There's nobody to charge you, really, is there, I've spoken about this in quite a few shows about these big events. No disrespect to people who do them. I think you and I have spoken about it, Barry, as well. You don't think maybe spirits at these big locations just get totally fed up with people harassing them and coming in and asking the same stuff? Whoever wants to answer says I've got 4 years.
I think you're right. I mean, I've noticed it with certain venues, years ago when we started going into them, there were always really lots and lots of activity. And I think what happens is that over time, we almost drain it a little bit, or people sort of exhaust it. And especially with some of the silly questions. I know we've had conversations before about what I call the respect element, where I think for me, I look at it very simply. And I think if I was over the other side, there's got to be that element of respect there for the spirit world, and I don't like this when people, I've seen it all too often where groups go in, they're investigating a place, all they're doing is screaming and shouting, being disrespectful. And I just think, what, if I was over the other side, I'd just go, do you know what, get on with it, I'll leave you to it, because there's no sort of intellect there, and Scott, when we've talked, we talk about the spirit world having intellect, being sensible people, professional people, and again, I liken it with myself. If I was over there, if somebody was screaming and shouting at me, I'd just wave my hand and just say, get on with it. But I think, is it the fact that has it sort of dampened down, or is it the fact now that we just expect more and more and more? I remember when I first started out, if a K2 meter went off or an EMF meter went off, we were really quite happy. Whereas nowadays, when that happens with a lot of groups, they go, "Is that it?" And I think, well, no, that's not just it. What has happened there? Well, you've had some activity that almost you've dampened down. And I think a lot of it is people's expectations now. They see, as we've said, we talked about it a few minutes ago, they see what's on TV and they think within 45 minutes, everything's going to happen and we can go home. And it doesn't work like that.
I think that goes back as well to what you were saying about, with people almost being sort of aggressive towards them. I think that's almost taught from the telly. That's the only place I've ever seen it before anyway. And so people are obviously, they're watching these people on telly get the responses, so to speak. So they're probably thinking, well, that's how I need to do it. That's what works. So I'll go in and I'll do that. And they're just, I don't mean to sound disrespectful to people, but it's possibly the fact that maybe they're just not sort of educated in maybe the best way to approach things. They just think that they can go in there, shout a few times, get people angry, that gets things going, like almost like movie style, where bars will start rattling all over the place, things will start getting thrown, and they go, yeah, excellent, that's what I wanted, got that on camera, cheers everyone, have a nice evening, and off they go. And like you say, it just doesn't work like that.
That's exactly why I like the small groups of people that are respectful, and you can just do your own thing sort of quietly, and like you say, you talk to them that like they're another human being, because they used to be. They've still got that intelligence. They've still got that energy. And when you get big groups of people on paranormal investigations, it can be a little bit exactly like you're saying. People, try and taunt them and ask them to do parlor tricks. And that's not fun, really. I don't like that.
I've got one more question for you guys, and I'll carry on. I've lost it now. Bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. It's here somewhere. I did have it a minute ago. Aye, there you go. Then I've got a comment for Laura to put up as well. Do you guys still do like it? I'd be really interested in having some help from a life coach for a startup.
Yeah, I still do a little bit. Sort of almost like what was just being said there in terms of, smaller groups. I don't go out there much as my life coaching much more now. But yeah, if you're interested, give us a shout. I'm sure I can drop some details after this.
Laura's saying a lot of groups, they strive for that one moment of fame, and they capture their evidence, job done. What they forget is the basic passion, the reason. I'm on fire in my speech tonight. I really am. I mean,
but that's a really good point what Laura said there, because I think, like you say, people strive for that one moment, but they miss so much, because I don't know what people expect nowadays from a paranormal investigation, and as I say, I look back to when we used to do, I'll call it simple ones, when we did more sort of straightforward events with not a lot of equipment, and we were really quite pleased if we got knocks or noises or bangs. Whereas nowadays, when I see groups work, it's almost not enough anymore. And I think also we're very much led by a lot of the American TV shows, where everything's always seems to got to have a twist to it. It's got to have a demonic twist in some way. And that disheartens me a little bit, because I think that loses an element of respect for me in what we do.
What do you guys think?
I mean, I think you've got a good point there, Barrie.
Agree. Sorry, Gaz.
No, go for it. You go for it.
I was just going to say, I agree. When you watch the TV programs, especially the American ones, they seem to be obsessed with demons. It's always a demon haunting. It's never just a nice, friendly spirit that's come back, to be with their family. It's always demonic. It's always a nasty attachment, because it gets the viewers. That's what gets people interested. So it's got to be quite dramatic, hasn't it? And we've all been on paranormal investigations, like Barrie said, where you can sit there for hours and hours and nothing happens. They can't televise that, can they? They have to edit it, where they've got these really sort of action-packed shots and things, haven't they? So, I think programs have very much gone that way, and even programs over here, actually in the UK, are getting a little bit like that now.
It is. It's that moment of fame. Sorry, Gary, you were going to jump in, weren't you? Then.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say sort of what you said about how, they're waiting for that one sort of moment. And obviously, I know Laura sort of said it as well. You're waiting for that one moment that you miss everything else that's going on. And what I kind of find with that is just funny that you mentioned it, because I always take sort of like parallels in like what I was doing with my life coaching and things as well, because I always say, you know, you see what you're focusing on. And it's like when people, I won't go into it, but there's a reason why, if you're like in a poor state of mind, when you're kind of going through life, you only end up seeing the bad stuff. If you're in a poor state of mind, you know, you see everything's bad, life's getting you down, there's nothing good. And that is because your mind is focused on the bad only, and you miss all the good stuff that's going on. It's kind of almost like a similar thing to what you're saying there, in a sense that if you're just focusing, waiting for the one big thing, you're missing all those little cues that are around that you could be picking up on, you know. So, you know, I think you got hit a good point there, Barry.
Jack, what you say, like one bit without equipment, we use equipment for public events. PIH use basic ping pong balls, candles, compass, cat balls, EMF detectors, hearing, scene. I said, well, we're just a basic team. You know, no offence to anybody who uses all this tech. We don't use it because, one, I don't understand it anyway. You know, so there's no point trying to watch something you don't know anything about.
I agree with you though there, Scott. I think sometimes it's better just to be more basic. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, credit to all these wonderful groups who have all this equipment set up, and it, you know, I love to see it. But then I think, well, you know, you probably spent most of your time setting everything up, and you probably missed most of your activity by setting everything up, if you know what I mean. You know, and somebody was asking me the other day, and they said, you know, how do you work when you go into a haunted building? And I said, I like to go in and I like to feel the building. I like to feel rooms and see what I feel as a medium there, you know. And the way it used to work many, many years ago is your medium almost led your paranormal investigation. And then you used your equipment, your basic equipment, your EMFs, your ping pong balls, marbles, coins, whatever. And we used to use them as an element of almost going, right, if Barry's picking something up here, right, if I throw this to you, can you throw it back? Or and we seem to lose that a lot nowadays. You know, we seem to lose that basic side of things.
Because I mean, if you look back, and again, Barry, you and I have spoken about this when it all began. You know, spiritualism and people started investigating, but they didn't have all these fancy gadgets and stuff back then. It was basic stuff, you know, bits of string, whatever. And to me, it's no spirits, no change. Spirits no get more advanced.
Yeah,
if that makes sense, you know. So I don't see that's why we don't bother with the tech. We'll have got some tech gadgets, you know, bits and pieces, not much.
Yeah.
But to me, I've said many times, spirit doesn't give a toss if you've got a £500 camera or a ping pong ball.
No.
You know, they don't care. And just we've had quite a lot of luck with just being better. I'm not saying we're anything special, we're certainly no. But we've had quite a lot of luck just being basic. You know, our M-Pod sitting one place, a K2 sitting somewhere else, some cat, that's it. Honestly, and I have 2 hearing aids. My class is deaf, I struggled, but I picked up spirit voice better than human voice. I was a grey guard myself, and I heard a voice saying hello. I just these hearing aids, I've picked quite a few bits up, but these shows do have a lot to blame. And another thing I was going to ask you guys, it popped into my head when Barry was talking earlier on. You get spirits, right? You know, we're all, in my mind, we're all the same. We go from A to B. You know, we get to the other side, whatever you want to call it. And to Edinburgh, we picked up on what we thought was a young woman who seemed to be kind of ashamed and troubled and what have you. I think if you're going to investigate, you need to take that into account as well. That you know, spirits there might have, you know, they might have some kind of issues, if that makes sense. You know, that they've carried on for the physical life into the spiritual one. And if you get these folk getting in and shouting and bawling and, you know, I dare you to throw a stone, and then that's just going to cause more upset than, you know, you're not going to get results. I know some folk might think that's stupid, a spirit that's got emotional problems, but who's to say they don't?
Yeah. It's a good point, isn't it? Because, you know, let's be honest, in everyday life, everybody suffers with some form of upset, mental health issues, mental health concerns. And that still is there when you go over to the spirit world. We always talk about people being exactly the same. You know, nobody comes back and says, oh, suddenly you know, everything's all rosy and wonderful again. You know, if they've been through trauma or been through difficult situations, and one of them I have to mention is things like suicides, for instance, people will still relay that message back to you in a strange way. And, you know, the other thing that I always say to people is, remember some of these buildings you're going into, if you're communicating with people not that long ago, really, if you think about it, in the 1800s, some of them really could struggle with communication. They might not be able to write. They might not know what a yes and no looks like, you know, and we have to remember that, you know, especially when we're using things like Ouija boards, for instance, going spell out your name. Well, maybe they didn't know the name. Maybe, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to look at this very sort of sensible in a way, you know, how we talk about spirit having intellect, but having intellect doesn't mean that you are sort of, pardon our word, this sort of educated in a way. You know, we know that, you know, going back to the 1800s, some people didn't even go to school in a way.
You know, many people.
It's a valid point. Really is a valid point. Yeah, absolutely.
But also, when you go on paranormal investigations as well, I find that some groups are also obsessed with crossing people over, crossing spirits over, and spirits don't always want to be crossed over. You know, they come and they visit and they hang around for a reason. You know, every group that I've come across seem to want to cross a spirit over, and that's not always the case. Spirits don't always need rescuing, do they? You know, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I mean, I find a lot of it quite sort of interesting and almost sort of conflicting. I mean, the thing is, though, to be honest, from my side, from my point of view, I don't think I've really been on enough sort of investigations myself to really kind of. I was thinking this earlier. Sorry, the reason I'm kind of jumping around is because it's almost like that, you know, from what people have kind of done and been through, they then start creating almost like these rules of how spirits are and how they should be. And oh no, well, you know, a spirit can only be within a certain amount of distance from a building. It's like, well, says who? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, what you were saying in terms of like, you know, the spirits haven't, you know, become more advanced or anything like that. You know, there are still old ways and things of doing things. It's just,
I don't mean, people say, you know, oh, that spirit, he can't leave here, you know, he can't go to the boundaries. But maybe it's not a case of that, you know, the gentleman cannot leave. Maybe he doesn't want to leave.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like Tracy was just saying then, it's like, you know, why, you know, who says that they want to go to the other side as such, or who says that he'd have this crossing over? You know, that's where's that come from? Who's told you that? You know,
it's their choice whether they want to stay here or not. Take an example, Caldwell, say I was communing with a gentleman who we couldn't understand, because they had a speech impediment. Yeah. And when we mentioned that, the K2 went crazy, which is true. I was there. But I think a lot of people forget this as well. But just with Tracy, you were saying about, you know, sending spirits over and stuff like that. What gets in my nerves is, I don't doubt it does your guy, is when you get these people say, we're going to clean this house. You know, and it's when you know the people personally that are going to do it, you know, and these cabbages couldn't clean a house with a vacuum cleaner and a transit van, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they'll go and say, right,
it goes back to what Tracy was saying as well, in terms of like everything's always bad, you know, because the TV shows, it's almost like, you know, it's a demonic entity, so therefore you've got to go in, you've got to clean out the house. And you know what I mean? It's always a bad thing. But I think people forget. I mean, I thought the whole point of sort of paranormal investigations as such was to create that communication bridge to the other side. You know, that's what we're trying to get. I mean, can you imagine if we were able to actually get to a point where we have a deceased loved one, but we have that communication bridge afterwards, where we could still contact them every now and again, and then we, you know, knew that they were fine. So like that to me was always sort of like the drive as such for trying to understand the paranormal. You know, it wasn't about going in and ghost busting or anything like that. It was trying to build that bridge, that communicative bridge to the dead, essentially.
And the other thing as well is sometimes spirits just come in to visit. They're not stuck in a location. They don't need crossing over because they're just coming into spirit. They're coming in to visit. They've already passed over the spirit realms, haven't they? And they're just coming back to a place that they loved or to people that they loved. So there's so many different scenarios, really, isn't there? When you do an investigation, if you think about it.
Okay, so I'm an open-minded skeptic. I love to we have a proper conversation about everything one time. I have so many. Kate's quite inquisitive, shall we say. Once she starts with one question, it's just like a Rolodex. I don't know if you remember what that is. My dad told me about them because I'm still too young. Just getting that one in there, Barry. You know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know about things like telexes or things like that. I'm too young for that. You're
still a young chicken, sir. Don't you let anybody tell you otherwise. You are still
whatever.
Whatever. You are still to reach your prime, basically.
I think what's interesting for me. I look at, like, obviously I know Gary through his life coaching side of things, and we've had numerous conversations. And I look at what people go through in this life and what we take over with us, what sort of things maybe we can't sort out or what we don't want to sort out. And this is where my mind gets very inquisitive. I'm not like Gary, I'm different in terms of the field, and we're all different, which is why it works well. But I often look at when people come to me for a reading where it's not a reading they really want. And pardon how I word this, they just need to sort their life out in a way, sort out what is a priority, what isn't a priority anymore. And I think what people try and do is they very much look at people like probably me and Tracy, first of all, where they expect us to solve all the problems. They expect us to go, actually, yeah, we've got all the answers here. Yeah, if you take this job, you're going to be all right. And if you live at number 27, you'll have a wonderful life. That's not how it works. And this is where I admire Gary a lot, because obviously we've chatted numerous times, and some of the things that Gary gets involved with, not only in terms of, pardon our word, this public, but in terms of the veteran side and helping people deal with situations. I don't want to call them problems because that makes it sound quite bad, but, dealing with things that they're going through. And I think this is all part of almost sort it out here so that, pardon how I say it, when you go over to the other side, you know what, you've dealt with that problem. You haven't got to go over it again. And this is where I like life coaching, and I do fully support the life coaching side of things, where people sometimes have got so much going on, you've got to almost prioritize what is important before you start talking to somebody like me and Tracy and asking us for that element of guidance. What is important to you? Is your family important? Is your job important to you? Your career, your home life? What's important first of all? And this is where I think Gary really does an amazing job, and especially with veterans, who need that support.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, just to keep touching on that as such, I think a lot of the time, kind of tying in what you were saying, it's almost like people want to be told what's right and what's wrong. And obviously the way that I come into it, especially with the veterans as such, is a lot of them don't even realize that actually they don't have to carry on with that particular mindset. Like, some of them have got to the point where they believe they're actually broken and they're forever going to be broken, and that, know, they've got something wrong with their mind or whatever. They don't realize that actually they have the ability to sort it out themselves, and that's where a coach comes into it as such, But I think kind of with what you're saying now, I think some of them are probably coming to you expecting almost like a form of coaching. When really they need to get that bit sorted out first, empower them, empower themselves first, and sort of say, right, now I'd like to actually go for some mediumship.
And that's a really good point what Tracy's just said, because I've always said to people, there's a very fine line between mediumship and being a counsellor. And I'm not, if you come and see me as a medium, you come and see me as a medium. If you come and see me as a counsellor, you come and see me as a counsellor. That is two totally different things. And people at times don't know what to expect or what they're looking for in a way. And that's I think that's where people, for me, just need to prioritise things.
I've got a question for Kate, and then I've got a question for Tracy and Barry, and for Gaz as well. Might as well include you. And Eric Mary, what's your view, Barry?
I don't know how to answer that one, really. I think it depends what you're referring to there, Kate, in the first instance. What are we talking about? Spirit? Are we talking about spirit leaving an impression? Or what are we talking about? I don't know. Am I misunderstanding a question?
Waiting for anybody back. So, as mediums, just as you were saying, Barry, some people come as a medium, or a counsellor. Do you ever get people coming expecting you to tell them their future? and stuff like that. You know, you see on the telly, you know, usually in comedy films, somebody goes and see a medium and say, right, my man died. Where has he put the insurance policy? You know, it sounds nuts. I mean, I have seen it in comedy. Do you ever get anything like that?
I'll let Tracy answer that one first.
Well, I do, obviously, with the tarot cards, but I always use tarot cards slightly differently because I always say to people that when I'm doing a tarot reading for them, it's a picture book of what's happening around them at the moment. So sometimes we can touch on the near past and the near future, but I do try and keep it to what's happening around their life at the moment as a tool and to give them guidance. But a lot of people do want to know, you know, in the future what's going to happen. And you can do that to a certain extent, but you have to be very careful about doing that because people have free will. They have to make their own choices. So you don't want to give a reading that then somebody makes a big life decision to totally change their direction. You know, I think that can be quite dangerous. I think tarot cards over the years have been read in a, you know, in a, everybody reads them differently, I know, but I do feel they could be used in quite a dark way and people believe in that. And I try and use them in a very lightweight and a very much in the here and now, what's happening around you at the moment. So. I
know one guy, and they disrespect it. I've never been heavily into tarot cards. You know, it's just something I've never been really interested. I might get interested now, but also it's got you coming back in January. I mean, that was my kind of save there, guys. I'm trying to save that one there. Don't know if it worked or not. I'll stay a comment up in a wee second, Kate. Well, I know one guy used to be friends with us, and all of a sudden he's became this big tarot card reader and gifted psychic. You know, and we're talking in the space of 2 months or something. He's all of a sudden turned into a psychic. And he used to say, time I'm as psychic as a brick and, you know, a bus and all the rest of it. But it's with people like that kind of give tarot reading a bad name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden, they've opened the door and they've got this gift. You know.
I think we all saw this about 4 or 5 years ago when we had all those wonderful lockdown periods where people were thinking, oh my God, this is so easy. I'll just sit at home with a pack of cards and, you know, I can do life coaching. I can do everything online. I can sit at home and it all works. And the other thing that I get quite sort of upset about at times, when you look on any social media platform, Facebook, etc., where there's all these certificates that are suddenly people can get. You can get a certificate for Reiki. Sorry, not Reiki. It's not a good example, but you know what I mean? Like aura reading, you can get a certificate for mediumship. And, you know, who's authorizing these? You know, where is the authorizing body behind this for me when you look at it? And it's something that I've always had a huge, huge passion for. I mean, as you know, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've always said that there needs to be almost like a governing body somewhere that sort of governs all of us. And there isn't really, you know, it's very bitty, but when you find a governing body, it's almost what somebody set up and said, oh, we're going to authorize this. We're going to give Tracy a certificate to say that she can do tarot readings. I'm going to give Gary a certificate to say he's a life coach. And that to me is not good enough. You know, it's not really properly valued in a way, you know, and that's quite sad for me. I find that quite upsetting because I think anybody, Scott, jumping on what you said, anybody can suddenly go, oh my gosh, I'm a psychic now, you know, I can do your reading. But you've got to think about the impact on people's lives. You know, none of us here, none of us guys know what anybody's going through who comes and sits in front of us. We have no idea. All we know at that moment in time, we might, you know, me and Tracy might pick something up. Gary might talk to them and go, right, okay, I've identified an area. But, you know, we don't know what people are going through. And you've got to be so careful what you say to people because people will take it as a gospel. They will go, Barrie, Tracy, Gary, they've all told me I've got to do this, so I'm going to do what they tell me.
No, I agree with that 1,000%. I've watched this guy a couple of times, and you know, you could have some women sitting there who's going through a big issue in their life, whatever it might be, you know, and you get this bollock sitting there saying you're going through a hard time, but I do see things getting better, or you know, and you need. And so you're giving this woman false hope. You know, she's sitting in a wee house somewhere thinking, all right, things are going to get better, but I need to do this first. And it could be the totally wrong thing for this lady to do. I'll just use a lady as an example. But you can't, it's the same as these teams, just jumping back quick, these teams that get into houses, and they turn and say, oh, you've got a demon in here, or you've got a bad entity in here. And it could be an elderly couple, or somebody's, get issues and stuff like that. And these people seem to forget it. They can go home. That says we've done an investigation, we will come back. But you're leaving this person, this homeowner, whatever, in this house, probably herself, because she thinks she's got Satan running about up the stairs or something like that. And it's totally, as you say with these people, I am a medium, I can read tarot, everything's going to be fine, dear. Don't worry. And you give these people so much false hope. I've got Kate's comment to put up. Sorry, Kate, there it's there. This is what she meant by the memory.
So I understand what you mean now, Kate. Sorry, apologies. I was reading it then when you put it online. Now, I think that we're all individuals. So I don't believe we we inherit it from our parents, etc., those thought patterns. I think what we do get is things like past lives. And I think you mentioned that. You've mentioned about past lives, not inherent memory. But I think certainly, in my case, for instance, I think my ability was really brought down through the family somewhere. I think there's always a long line connection somewhere where it's sort of passed on in the genes in a way. But I don't necessarily think that memories are passed on, because I have to be honest, I don't remember anything about what my mum went through, if you know what I mean. I've not had that experience. But obviously I know what she's told me. So that's not really inherent memory. That's just me replicating what she's told me through time. So I think it's a really good question. I think it's one that we could spend a whole night talking about. And I don't know what Tracy and Gary's sort of view on that are. But I think for me, the fascination is past life experience, because I think we've all had some means of a past life.
Yeah, I don't believe that you carry memories through, but I do believe that obviously you pick things up, as we know, using all of your clairsenses. So you might be clairsentient, you might be picking up that feeling of something. And there are so many different clairs that you can use, but I don't believe it's memories. It's linking into that person. They might give you a memory of something when you're reading for somebody, but it's different, isn't it, to carrying it through? But a little bit like Barrie, I mean, I'm of Irish descent on both sides of my family, and one of my grandmothers used to read tea leaves and the other one used to see angels, but it was all sort of pushed to one side. It was all hushed up back then. We were quite strong Catholic faith, and it was all kind of pushed away. I think it was the opposite for Barry's family, but for my family, it was kind of, oh no, don't be ridiculous, but both my grandparents were quite psychic. So I think it's passed down in that way.
Yeah. Do there's something I'm going to throw at Gary here, because I've done quite a few events over in Germany, and especially on some of the old military bases over time. And I found them, Gary, to be really, really quite active. There was a lot of things happening, some of it not pleasurable, if I can word it as that as well, And I remember going to one camp, and afterwards I found out it was just outside Paderborn. And I remember Tracy, my friend who invited me over, I remember her telling me, oh yeah, basically they dug a big hole and they put all tanks in this hole, and then they filled it in, so that the people couldn't find all their equipment in a way. But I remember we went into, from memory, it was sort of like a nursery school now, but it was one of the old military buildings, but it was the old hospital wing. And do you know what? That place for me just got me so, I don't know how to say it, but I'm going to use the word agitated, okay? And I don't know if you've ever experienced that, Gary, when you were in the military, where did you pick things up in some of these old buildings? Did you, what sort of things did you feel from it?
It's a difficult one for me to answer, such because I kind of, especially at the time, I wasn't as open-minded as I am now to stuff like that. Yeah. So, but I've always had a good creative imagination as well, and I think it's difficult to understand if I was picking up or anything, or if it was just a fact. Because let's be honest, military buildings aren't exactly decorated nicely; they're absolutely bog standard. Haven't been touched, probably stink of mold in the cellar and stuff like that. So you're not exactly walking into a pleasant environment to begin with. Yeah. So it's difficult to to kind of pin that one down, and whether I ever actually picked anything up on in that sense of things, or if my mind was just allowing me to go down a route because of my surroundings, you know, the information I was taking in as such from what I'm looking at and feeling and stuff. So yeah, sorry, it's a bit of an open answer, that one, I'm afraid.
I think that's a really good one, though, because I think, just picking up on that, I think we've all seen this over time. I mean, I remember going to, I think it was Kelvedon Hatch, the nuclear bunker down south. And I remember going in there once. And I remember it, you know, being really, really, I was thinking, how's this place work? Because was it ever actually used? Was it just a place that was meant to be used? A little bit like some of our haunted buildings in the UK, you know, where they were never really finished and suddenly they're very haunted. And I think, but nobody's ever lived there, for goodness sake, you know. So what energy is left on that place? Yeah, you've got the energy of the land, for instance. But, you know, you just made a good comment there, Gary. You know, is it people's imagination a lot of the time? You know, we're going into a dark, dingy dungeon or something. Well, you know, you're going to go, oh my gosh, it's not very nice. Well, okay, is it not very nice? Or are you picking up something psychically or mediumistic that's saying, actually, yeah, this happened to somebody in this part of the building? And I think that's a really valid point, isn't it? Where, you know, it's almost that, what would you call it? I want to say that aesthetic impact on people, what they see when they go into a building, first of all, and maybe is that creative imagination that kicks in and not necessarily mediumship or the paranormal that kicks in.
That's a good point, but I'm going to stick these three comments up there. I like to get back to what Barry just said. When Laura's cat went missing, Barry found him.
I remember that. I do remember it. Yeah, I do remember that. I remember Laura messaging me and asking me what was my feelings, and there you go. She's told you.
Actually, she says Barrie John found my cat, and I was like, what? You know, sometimes Laura just comes out with random things, and you're like, what? So Barrie John found my cat. So please explain. Was Barrie John in short leaves and Kilmarnock cat hunting? You know, did something I need to know? You know?
I wish I'd known Barry then, because
I
lost my cat, disappeared for a year, and then turned up. I wished I'd known Barry then. I could have asked him that question.
At least you've got it back, Trace. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
I had the white noise on at night. Heard children behind the noise, sound like a choir. We were. Caldwell's a bit like that with stone tape theory. You get in there and there's a lot of atmosphere and bits and pieces happen.
Well, I've heard that's how some people sort of, what's it that, I mean, again, it's kind of almost like a made-up rule as such, isn't that sort of like the difference between what they say, like a ghost and a spirit? Like one is more like a replay of time, and the other is more intellectual.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are. I don't know if you use the same terminology or anything, but
yeah, I mean, I do. I've always used that terminology. You know, I mean, I know certain people, if you hear them talk, they'll talk about silicon, for instance, or the stone, like we mentioned it there, the stone tape theory. I can't remember where it was now. Yeah, there you go. Kate mentioned it. Where we believe that buildings hold that energy. You know, now is it the building that holds that energy, or is it a visitation coming back that brings that energy in? And I think, you know, a really valid point, and I know we've touched on this tonight, where, you know, we talk about spirit rescues, don't we, all the time? People always want to go, oh, I've rescued a spirit, oh, I've rescued them, oh, they needed rescuing. Well, you know, I mean, if somebody in 100 years' time comes into my home and goes, oh my God, there's this big man here, he's 6'5" tall, I've got to send him over to the other side. Well, I'm going to go, no, actually, that was my home. That was the place that I knew was home. I'm quite comfortable visiting there. You know, I don't want to go over to the other side, you know. But then you say, I believe that being a spirit, I can go wherever I want to in that moment in time. I can come and sit on Gary's bed, or I can come and have a cup of tea in your living room, Scott, whatever, because that's what we talk about when we talk about spiritual energy. You know, and this has been proven when I've done demonstrations overseas, where spirit will travel overseas to communicate with people, you know, and they do, you know, it's no different to me doing a phone reading for somebody in America, for instance. You know, the spirit isn't tied to a location. The spirit is tied normally to their family or the person, and they'll move wherever that person needs to go in a way. So, you know, I get a bit upset when people talk about rescuing all the time, and especially when it's, pardon our word, this over the top. You know, suddenly every spirit's got to be rescued. No, it hasn't. They're quite comfortable where they are. If spirit want to be rescued, they'll tell you that. They'll say that I want to move on or move over.
It might be
exactly.
that they want to make themselves feel like they're doing something good. You know, so they think they're going around rescuing when really it's just that it's almost like their own therapy. You know.
Yeah.
So they feel good about it when they don't really understand what it is they're actually trying to do. Sorry, Scott,
Yeah.
I'm interrupting you. Trying to say something.
No, it's fine, young man. Or just basically they want to keep an eye on their family, you know, or their friends, you know. Give a father, mother, whoever, they just want to keep an eye out and just let them know, you know, I'm still kicking about, you know, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm here if you need me, basically. Because let's face it, you know, as I said earlier on, with the same person, so you don't lose that parental instinct when when you go over, you're still somebody's parent, and you want to look out for them, basically. But just quickly, I know we're kind of thingy for time. What Barrie was saying about locations and when you go in, you know, is it paranormal or is it up here? It's with the Covenanters prison in Greyfriars. You know, we've been there quite a few times, but when you go in between the Kirkyard, you get to the prison, there's a different atmosphere. Now, I've said to people, I'm not saying it's paranormal, but is it because we know what went on there? You know, back in the 1600s, 1700s, we know what that place originally was and what happened there. So is it our mind that's actually, you know, telling us, oh, this place is haunted, this place is, and it's making you feel that way? You know, it's not the actual, that it's not like there's some kind of, all right, there is something in the Covenanters prison. There's over 3,000 documented reports of attacks in there, but you still get that kind of feeling when you walk in. Does that make sense? I think
it does, yeah, because I think at times, you know, this is why I don't want to know history of buildings before I go into them, because I think that puts that idea in my mind, and I'm thinking, oh, right, yeah, Billy died in this room, or he's going to be there, he's going to be waiting. Well, actually, Billy might be off that night. It might not be him. It might be Maureen on the staircase or something. Do you know what I mean? And I think we've got to be very, very careful. And I always say this to every group. Don't listen to what other groups have got. You go in there and see what you feel in the building. Don't take any notice what's on websites, what people have wrote about the building, because let's be honest, poor old Mary Queen of Scots, I'm not being funny. She must have a residence in every building in the UK, you know, near enough. And suddenly everybody that goes in picks up Mary Queen of Scots. Well, you know what? Maybe she weren't there that moment in time, you know. And this is where I think people lose the true ethic of what I'm going to call mediumship, you know, and psychic ability, because we almost go on what we know, not what we feel and what we get in. That's the difference for me.
No, I know exactly what you mean, but it's like, take Anne Boleyn, for instance, you know, she's been reported at Hever Castle, Salisbury Hall, Hampton Court, Tower of London. You know, there's another 2 or 3 places she's been reported at all these different places. Yeah. But is it a case of there is some, I know, a lady spirit there, but it might have been a maid or something like that. But because Anne Boleyn's got a tie to that building, that was Anne Boleyn.
Yeah, it's an assumption straight away, isn't it? It's assumption that that's what it is. And, you know, again, I always look at things very simplistically. You know, I'm not being funny. We'll use that as an example. If Anne Boleyn was there, is she really going to communicate with me?
No. I mean, the Tower of London, take Anne Boleyn's case, sorry, but take Anne Boleyn for the prime example. She was executed in the Tower of London. She was held prisoner in the Tower of London. Yeah. So why would she be in a place that caused her so much misery?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I think again, we keep saying this. We've talked on it a few times, haven't we? Everybody wants that element of fame to go, oh my God, I've communicated with Anne Boleyn or whoever it is, Mary Queen of Scots, whatever, you know. And I just think, you know, okay, yeah, if you're going to communicate with her, then get some real evidence. Then what's she going to tell you, apart from anything that you can read online? What is she going to tell you that you can find provable and traceable in terms of evident information?
Just a prime, just very, very quick. You know, a prime example. I was watching it last night. It's a couple of people who we used to know a few years back. They were doing an investigation up at Craigie Castle, which is up at the back of where we are. The Craigie, it's not a castle. It's about a wall. There's about a wall there. That's what remains of the old castle. But anyway, it's got very, very slight ties to William Wallace. Very slight. I think he visited there or something. And but they did. I was watching again last night. They did an investigation up there, and they convinced they got William Wallace and his horse. Do you know what I mean? And the REM pod kept going off. It's the same kind of REM pod that we use, but you could see very, very clearly on the camera that the antenna, the area, whatever you call it, was going like that because it was really, really windy. Bushes beside it were going like this, so the REM pod was like, so it kept going off, obviously. But they were convinced that's William. I think we've got
back to that sort of influence and focus, isn't it? It's like there's an exercise that I used to do when I used to do my live sort of masterminds as such. But I'd turn around and I'd say to everybody, right, what I want you to do is take a look around the room. I mean, you could do this at home now, anyone who's still watching, and, you know, take a look around your room and tell me everything in your room that is blue. Go count it now, off you go, you know, and I give them, you know, a minute or so to do. And I come back and say, right, okay, great. And I say, okay, so you've just taken around for everything that's blue. Right, I say, what's the number? They tell me the number. Okay. And then I say, okay, great. So out of all of that, how many things were yellow? How many things were red? And they go, oh, I can't remember. I'm like, don't look around. But it's because you were so focused on trying to find that blue, you know, that blue item and get the number for the blue item. You didn't even think about, even though your eyes would have seen it, you wouldn't have taken in the red. You wouldn't have taken in the yellow. Such. And that's the thing when it comes to like the ghost hunters as well, you know, like you were saying there, as soon as you've got an influence that William Wallace was in there or whatever, you know, that's what you're going to want to go and find, and you're not looking at everything else. And it almost goes back to what we were saying about, you know, missing everything else that's going on because you're so focused on that one thing.
It's the same as Greyfriars with Mackenzie Poltergeist. Everybody goes in there, you know, is convinced to pick up the Mackenzie Poltergeist, but there's no such thing. Mackenzie Poltergeist was a made-up name for a book. But everybody, it was Mackenzie Poltergeist that attacked me. But, you know, George Mackenzie scratched my backside and stuff like that. No, he never. Do you know what I mean? Because you know, he's not there. But anyway, but I think, I know we're just at a limited time. But I'll hold on, he's just after we come off, because I know Barry has to get to his bed early, him being a young chicken. You know what I mean?
I've had a snooze. I'm all right, and my batteries are charging, so I'm all right with that one.
Aye, we hear this, Tracy, right? You missed this. Rather than speak to me, you know what he's doing. But I'll tell you what he's doing.
What's he doing?
He's charging his batteries for his Christmas lights.
He did happen to mention he was doing that earlier.
Oh, so you already knew then, eh?
Don't drop me in it, Tracy, now. Don't drop me in it.
Just tell him, is he one of these people that put his life on Facebook? You see these people that, you know, they take pictures of their dinner and they put it on Facebook. I'm having mash and mince tonight. You know, finish my dinner. I'm going to watch I'm a Celeb.
You've said that wrong there, Scott. It's not. It's mince and tatties, isn't it? Not mashing mince and tatties. Come on. Sorry. I thought you were a true Scotsman. That's not.
I'm a Trump.
What about Stovies then? How about Stovies? That's one of my favourites. You know, I used to live in Dundee for a while, and they did Stovies, and I absolutely love that.
You get Stovies as well. I was looking. Somebody made Stovies the other day. Can't mind, but they put big full things of square slices. You know what square slices, surely.
Yeah, sausage.
Oh yeah.
But they put the full square slice in. With a grate, and it looked kind of yellow as well. I've never seen yellow Stovies in my life, but you know, I do apologise, Barry. You know, the mince and tatties. I should know. You know, I'm born and bred Glaswegian boy. Don't you forget that.
I'm doubting you now. I think this accent's just put on for this show. I think you're from down south or something, Scott.
Yeah, like Skegness or something like that. You know, one of these exotic parts. He's a Blackpool or something like that. You know, no, I can assure you, I'm 100% Glaswegian blood flows through these veins.
That'll be whiskey. That'll be whiskey then.
When was the last time I had a whiskey? Oh, I can't remember. Oh. I remember one night I went out. It was a works night out, and I met one of the boys at work. He was older than me. For that, you know, I emphasise that now. But we were in one pub, and he says, "You want to get into?" I think it's called the Clansman or something. We were into this other pub, and he says, "Do you want a Jack Daniels and Coke?" I usually just drank pints, but he says, "You want a Jack D and Coke?" I was like, "I'll go on then, fine." And so had that. Do you want another one? We ended up in Jack Daniels all night. Never again. See, the next morning, I felt my head was under a skip. Do you know what I mean? It was just never ever again. But I'm not a big drinker, as Laura in the chat will tell you. I'm more a kind of teetotal person. I had one can of beer about 2 weeks ago, and 3 weeks ago, and that's been it. You know what I mean?
Believe you. We'll believe you.
Oh, bless you.
I do. Plus, don't forget this Drink Drive campaign. I don't know, you're probably going to do it there. You get the Drink Drive campaign up here now as well, because it's December.
Yeah, we get it down here.
The boys in blue are out, but I'm very, very much against people who drink the night before, then drive the next day.
Yeah.
You know,
Not good.
because because you know, so I'm not driving to tomorrow, but they forget it's still in the system. You know, so no, I'm no one for that. That's a drinking driving lesson for tonight. Don't do it. That was a serious face there. I try to be serious for a second. Don't do it. Really. But I'll hold on to you guys. So where can everybody find you? Who wants to go first? Ladies first. Ladies first, because I'm a gentleman.
Well, I'm in witness protection, so it's very hard to find me. Yeah, you'd have to Facebook message me, Tarot Tracy, because my page is quite private. So the only way I can if people can find me, either in your friends list, if I'm in your friends list, or if they message me, Facebook Messenger, I can respond to that, and then I can link them into my page.
I don't know whether to believe it or not. Witness protection. See, there's my witness there. Thank you, Laura, dear.
Oh, well done, Laura.
Oh, you wouldn't be saying that a couple of weeks ago, Barry. Just quickly before we wind up. I told you about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. Sarah and Laura were in here, and they went through a bottle of gin and vodka. They were hammered. I had one can. I opened a can, drank it. I'm not really in the mood for a drink. They too rattled the drink that night, and they were, you know what I mean? That's all I'm going to say.
Their secrets are out now.
Oh, well,
Exactly.
Jump over to Gary. Come on, Gary. Where can everybody find you?
Where can we find you, Gary?
I'm all over Facebook mainly, so you can find me on Facebook. I've got a separate page as well, so you can find me on that.
Under Gaz Creswell. And, well, you, Mr. John?
Oh, I don't know. I'm anywhere, aren't I? Anywhere and everywhere. Find me through Scott's page and find us on Facebook, internet, whatever. You'll find us. Just look for us.
And as long as his batteries are charged, they'll talk to you. Basically, like that. So I'll hold on easy for a wee side after we come up. So a big thanks to my 3 guests tonight. Tracy was a bit of a surprise for Baza there. I hope it was a pleasant one. I'm sure it was. But we are back during the week with John Ozuna. We've only got 2 shows before we wind up for Christmas. 2 shows and 1 investigation. We're off to the Banshee Labyrinth in Edinburgh a week on Monday. So we're really looking forward to that. And so stay safe till then, and we'll see you next week. And you'll see, just have a look. You'll be seeing these guys again anyway. All right, folks. Take care for now.
Guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys.